and live streamers meetup at Ustream. And thank you for Ustream for hosting us tonight. Let's take this off real quick. So we're leaning in. Yes, okay. So yes, thanks for showing up tonight. I'm Eddie Codell, your host. This is a meetup group that you are all a part of, and we are streaming this to the internet. So if anybody feels like letting others know, we are at ustream.tv/SF Webcasters. That is where we can see tonight. Tonight we have multiple people who are going to be presenting on a variety of subjects related to the world of live streaming equipment, broadcasting, features, and experiences. So I guess without further ado, I think what I'll do is I'll introduce our first speaker, which is Alden Fertig from Ustream, who is behind the zeros and ones right now. And I think Alden is going to give us a rundown on what Ustream is doing these days. What's I guess various things related to the platform, I suppose. Is that right? I don't even know. I should have probably should have looked and see what you're actually going to talk about. But Alden happens to know all the amazing things that are going on inside the hallowed halls of Ustream here, hallowed halls of Ustream, and he's going to let you guys know what the latest and greatest is. After Alden, we're going to have Dan Sorensen from TVU Networks, which is a company that makes broadcast video hardware, remote broadcast video hardware. And then we've got Jay Tao from, better known as Punk Boy in SF, and he sort of made himself a little famous last year with the Occupy SF as a live streamer covering all the sort of shenanigans and arrests and insanity that was going on down at Justin Herman Plaza, or Bradley Manning Plaza, as some people call it. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have the three speakers, and then we'll have a break. Probably, we'll see how we'll go. We might have a break between the second and third speaker, or we might just go all the way through. But the idea is we have the speakers, and then we'll do a Q&A after each speaker, and then afterwards we will do what we call an open streams thing, where people can come up and sort of talk about whatever they want to for up to 5 minutes and 5 minutes only. So, and it has to be related to the world of streaming. So if you've got something you want to promote, you've got an event you're doing, or you have a project you're working on, that's the time to talk about it. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alden Fertig of Ustream. Thanks, everyone.
So I'm going to demo two things actually. So since Eddie wasn't sure what I was going to demo, I'll tell you. So we have two things. First of all, how many people here are familiar with Ustream already? You already use Ustream. Okay, cool. So I won't really tell you what Ustream is. Hopefully you know what it is. We're a streaming platform. We like it. It's very easy to use. It's also very powerful. You can get started with a free account if you don't have one already. We also host pretty large streaming events. And so one of the things that we've been doing, we originally launched a long time ago, and we had a very easy way you could stream just from a browser. We have a Flash-based browser broadcaster, and that's been awesome because literally in a couple clicks, I can click this button here, it says go live, in a couple clicks I can be streaming. Then we partnered with Telestream, and we made Ustream Producer, which is basically our own brand new version of Wirecast. That's been a very successful and popular streaming product as well. But the more recent activities we've been doing is sort of taking the next step in that evolution, which is we've been partnering with a lot of hardware manufacturers and making it even easier to stream from various pieces of hardware. So I'm going to demonstrate two things tonight. One is, I don't know how many people are familiar with the A10 television studio, but it's a 1U multi-camera switcher. You can do HDMI and SDI inputs. I have one back here on the table. Unfortunately, I can't lift it up too much because we'll lose a couple of our key shots that we're using right now. But one of the nice things about it is that both the A10 television studio and the H.264 Pro recorder, they actually have a built-in chip that does H.264 encoding on the hardware. And this is very nice because if you know anything about encoding, you know that H.264 encoding is very CPU intensive. And so we made a software which, what it does, it allows you to take the already encoded H.264 stream and you can feed that into your laptop on USB, and then you can stream that with using almost zero CPU usage. So this is pretty exciting. We have it available now for Mac, and we'll have it available soon for Windows as well. And we're pretty psyched about it because what it means is that you can take any sort of crappy old laptop and you can actually have multi-camera switching for a $1,000 piece of hardware, and you don't need a really beefy computer, and you can just plug in USB. So I'm going to demonstrate that, and I'm also going to show how many people are familiar with the NewTek TriCaster. I know a lot of you people are. So we have a NewTek TriCaster here. This is the TriCaster 40. We also partnered with NewTek, and on the new version of the TriCaster 40 software, we have a plugin on there, so you can just enter your username and password. You can stream directly from the interface. You can always stream from a TriCaster, so it's not really brand new that you can stream from a TriCaster to Ustream. But what it does is it makes it a lot easier. So, you know, it sounds like it's the easiest thing in the world to copy and paste an RTMP address and stream name, but I've been on the other end of the phone, and a lot of people where it's complicated. And you know, so we wanted to kind of take that out of the equation, so we made it a little easier by, you can just log in with your username and password, and we made a couple carefully chosen presets, so you can just stream much easier than you could before from the TriCaster. So I'm going to demonstrate both of those now. So hopefully, if my USB cable didn't go anywhere. So I have the USB cable here connected to the ATEM, and we actually use the ATEM not only for streaming, but it's a really nice box. We've used it in conjunction with our TriCaster because our TriCaster has 3 inputs, and sometimes we want to use more than 3 inputs. So right now we have like a main camera, we have a feed from the computer, we have one camera which needs to shoot the screen in a second, then we have a GoPro up there, and it's nice having more than 3 cameras, so we're actually using the ATEM just to feed more inputs into the TriCaster. But the other thing that we can do, I can take a feed out of the USB from the ATEM at the same time, I should be able to. And here's our plugin for the ATEM, where it's just a small piece of software. And I'll log out of my account just so you can see what it looks like. This, when you open it up, it's just pretty simple. You have a login screen. I'll log into my account. Hopefully I can type one-handed. There we go. And we have a couple presets, basically depending on how much bandwidth you have. It only broadcasts at the same resolution as what we're getting off the ATEM, which is 1080 right now. And I just hit start broadcast, and then we can go take a look at this broadcast. Oh, by the way, we put this up just as a cool demo. Oh, Andy, there you are. So we've been playing around with this. What is this? A 260-degree camera?
I think it's 220.
220-degree camera. So we have this feeding into FMLE. Just has a cool panoramic stream there. So we put that up just for some interesting eye candy, and you can come check it out afterwards as well. Oh, not the right one. So I'm streaming right now from the ATEM, and it's going to be whatever camera shot we're in now, which might be a GoPro, or Joey can switch it from back there. So it's pretty simple. It's not too exciting of a demo because it's very simple software. Basically, all it does is take the encoded output and stream it. But the simplicity of it is why it's pretty cool, because we're distributing the software for free, and it isn't re-encoding the feed, so it's basically not using any of my CPU power. So when we were originally demoing this, we were intentionally finding the oldest, crappiest Mac laptops that we could, just anything that had an internet connection, and it can just send the signal because it's already getting encoded on the hardware there. So that's the Blackmagic ATEM Television Studio. It also works with the Blackmagic H.264 Pro Recorder. So they're pretty similar. The main difference is that Pro Recorder is $500. It's a single HDMI or SDI source. The ATEM has the multi-camera switching. And the multi-camera switching is actually controlled. You control it over the network. So we have an Ethernet cable that goes into another laptop, which does the actual switching of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the projector, and I'm going to switch it to show the screen from the TriCaster. So here's our TriCaster screen. So this is the TriCaster 4D software, and on the interface here, you have record, stream, this is screen grab. On stream, there's a gear wheel next to it. This is where you set your streaming settings. So I'm going to click on this, and this will launch the window where we can choose where we want to stream to. So we're going to choose we want to stream to Ustream, hit configure plugin. Same, similar kind of interface here. You can see it's pretty simple. I'll click login here. Once I log in, I can see all my channels under my account. And I can choose the resolution I want to stream at, and then for each resolution we have multiple bandwidth choices, so it just depends on what bandwidth you have available. And it's probably a little difficult for you guys to see it on the screen, but it tells you what bitrate you're streaming at right underneath the bandwidth selection there, so it's not a great mystery. We want to keep it pretty simple. It's not totally configurable to do any wacky, crazy combination of resolutions and bit rates, but one of the reasons why we kept it this way is because you always do have the FMLE option, or you could always use another encoder if you're really advanced and you want to tweak with your settings. We want to just kind of keep this as easy as possible, as few options, so that way people don't get confused and pick the wrong thing. So I'll just save that, hit OK on this window, and click stream. And now we're going to stream the output of this TriCaster, and I'll just switch back to my computer so we can take a look at what it looks like. So that's the stream from the TriCaster here. So since I know a lot of you guys are more advanced technically, I'll show you a cool trick on Ustream, which is not really published much. But if you want to find out information about your stream, you can click on the player and click Control-S, and we have like a pretty detailed debug overlay, which shows you exactly what bitrate is coming in, what resolution is coming in, and it shows you what server the stream is being served off of, and the graph on the bottom basically shows you the chunks that are being served. We're on HTTP delivery right now, and it shows you the amount that's in the buffer and when it's running out. So it's kind of a cool little eye candy thing. Also something if you're a more advanced streamer, if you want to find out some more information about the stream that you're watching.
Can you do that on mobile devices
Control-S.
too?
What's that?
Can you do that on mobile devices too?
No, so it's just if you're watching the stream. But if you're streaming from a mobile device, you can see that. So it shows you the incoming resolution and everything, so it's pretty okay. Control-S. Don't leave it on for too long. If you leave it on for hours at a time, it will start using a lot of memory on your computer, so it's not really meant to be a real viewing thing. So, also, I don't have it enabled on this channel. Let me see if I have any other one. No. But we do have in the cloud transcoding available for pro broadcasting accounts, and so for those channels, usually you'll see a little selector here, and you can get multiple bit rates. So that way, if you send a HD stream, we can make available multiple renditions of that stream on our servers, and then those are all served to the player. So you can get multi-bit rate streams to the player from a single high bit rate stream. And we do the same thing with HLS or iOS versions, so that you can get multiple bit rates available on mobile devices from our servers. So all you need to do is send a single high bit rate stream. So that's also why devices such as the ATEM Television Studio and the TriCaster are really interesting, because they're not encoders that are capable of sending 8 streams all from the source, but because we have that cloud transcoding available, you don't need to send multiple renditions of the stream from the source. You can just send a single high bitrate stream, and we make available all the lower bitrate versions. So that's about it for the demonstrations. Any questions I can answer?
Okay, is this mostly for use for a business with switchers and 3 cameras, or is it just for a 1 camera, 1 laptop use?
Sure, yeah. So we have, the question was, is it mostly for business use, multiple camera productions, or can it be used for single camera productions? So we do have a couple additional options, which I didn't demonstrate, which is we have Ustream Producer, and we also have our web broadcaster, which those are really good for more simple personal broadcasting, single camera broadcasting. So these are more for multi-camera applications, but we do have a lot of options for single camera streaming as well as mobile streaming. I know Jay Tao is going to talk a little bit later about his experience using the mobile broadcasting. Any other questions? Otherwise,
yeah, with the TriCaster plugin,
oh yeah, we should get the other mic. Yeah,
so we
yeah.
capture the
Check, check. Okay. The question I had real quick is the TriCaster here. There's the plugin. You can select bit rates. Is there Ustream has transcoding in the cloud now? So with the pro broadcasting account, would you be able to send out, let's say, a 720p stream from the TriCaster and have that transcode in the cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and the newer TriCasters are pretty capable of sending a 720 stream. If you have an older one, they definitely are not.
Right. Where's the cutoff for those who happen to have TriCasters that might have this question?
Yeah. So we have let's see, we have a 300 over there, and this is a 40. Anything that's in the newer series, which is anything with an X, most of those are capable of doing 720. But anything that's not in the newest X series, they definitely are not capable of doing 720. We had I think it was a TriCaster Studio 300 before, and that couldn't really, you didn't want to really push it over like a 700K stream. And when you're doing 700K, you want to be at, maybe 480 or something. So, usually I would say that even though you can go in and tweak the presets, you don't want to, because, if you set a preset or you set a setting that's higher than their presets, it's probably not going to be able to handle it. So.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. You want to hand the mic back?
Thank you. So on the transcoding service, do you have a paper that talks about that in more detail? So you have is there like a best practice for that yet, or?
So yeah, we do have actually on our site. If you go to support.ustream.tv, we have a pretty detailed article here for encoding specs and stream settings, and so this shows what we recommend. I don't know that it talks too much about the cloud transcoding. So it's actually a pretty good idea that I should write some more detailed specs on what that does. But this shows pretty detailed recommendations on what kind of streams we like to see as the incoming bit rates.
Yeah.
I'm going to add 1080 to this now. Up until pretty recently, we weren't really encouraging too much 1080, just because a lot of playback systems were having a lot of trouble with it. Just a typical computer with a flash player just couldn't really handle 1080, and most of the mobile devices weren't really ready for it. But it's changing. One of the things that's pretty interesting about streaming is it's literally changing every day, and so 1080 just in the last maybe a couple months is becoming much more.
Yeah, that was one of my parts of the question was used to be 720 was kind of the top resolution for the non-TV world, but it seems like now it's going more towards 1080i and even P. And then the other part of the question is, if you do this paper soon, I encourage you to do that. Because part of the question I get more often than not is transcoding the cloud. What are the actual outputs you guys are kicking out?
Yeah, so the actual outputs are pretty similar actually to what we recommend here for the inputs.
Okay.
So if you can't read it, basically there's a 270 version, which is on the low end, 360, 540, and a 720 version. So we're not doing, at the moment, I don't think we're doing a 1080 HLS version, but I think we're going to add that pretty soon. Again, because it's now now HLS versions.
And
of
what about 4K?
No 4K streaming.
I was kidding. I'm kidding.
So there's no MPEG dash yet. There's no H.265. There's no 4K yet. I was joking with Andy about the other day is that despite what you read, nothing can actually play back really H.265 or MPEG dash yet. So it doesn't really matter if we deliver them. But you know, like I said, I think 1080 is at a point now where we're going to start. We definitely support it. You can stream in 1080. We've had people streaming in 1080 for a long time now. It's just the difference is for us is it's like, well, do we support it and can you try it versus, you know, do we encourage you to stream at 1080? Because we always want to, you know, we don't want to encourage people to stream at 1080 and then have people go, well, why is it not playing back for everyone or something? So, but I think 1080 seems pretty well supported now, and you know, 4K is going to be next. So,
Yeah.
not today, but soon.
Sometime. Okay. Who's next?
Yeah, yeah. If Google Fiber becomes a reality everywhere, then
Yeah.
we're there.
Okay, I have a question regarding you have 4 cameras, 1 switcher, 2 monitors, and a computer. Number 1 question is where you get the equipment, and number 2 question is what was your investment in all this?
Answer to the first question is B&H, and the answer to
B&H online in New York?
Yeah, B&H Photo Video in New York. They're a huge store. They have an awesome store. If you ever go to New York, you should go check it out.
So you'll find all these cameras there?
Yeah, on Google Maps, you can even actually go inside the B&H store on Google Maps now. If you ever try it, it's pretty cool. You like go on Google Maps and zoom in, and you can walk through the actual store. But it's an amazing store if you ever go to New York. It's pretty awesome if you buy online too. They are very religious, and so they're closed about 100 out of 365 days of the year. But you know,
No, they're Orthodox Jews.
yeah. So, but if you can, you know, navigate around all the religious holidays, then you know they're usually a pretty good place to buy stuff, and they have everything. So the main reason why we like to order from them is because they literally carry like everything. You know, from really high-end stuff to really low-end stuff, video, audio, everything, and total investment for all the gear, I don't know, I think it's, you know, maybe, you know, everything we're using here is maybe like $30,000, $40,000 worth of stuff, but, you know, it's not like that's what you have to spend. I mean, I think like, you know, I've had some conversations with people before about budgets, and it's like, you know, okay, you can do stuff on $500 to $5,000, and that's really like super low-end consumer. You know, maybe we assume that you already have a laptop somewhere that you can repurpose, and if you do, then you can probably, you know, make something happen on $500. If you want to, you know, start having a more professional production and have more reliable gear, then you probably start getting above $5,000. And also, you know, renting is always an option too. So a big piece of it comes down to, are you going to be charging other people, you know, for this work? And if you are, then you can't have your gear fail. So I think that that's like a big thing, is that if you're doing work for other people and they're paying you, they expect you're going to bring pretty top-notch gear, and you can rent a lot of it. You know, I mean, I know Eddie and I were talking before this, and Eddie said, you know, he's rented a lot of gear, and I know Joey, who's doing our video production, he'll rent a lot of gear because, you know, sometimes you want an expensive switcher or you want an expensive camera, but you can't afford to buy one for $40,000, but it doesn't mean you can't rent it for a day for, you know, $1,000 or something. So it's always an option.
It's also that some cameras are better for some jobs, some are not good for some jobs.
But you don't rent your own equipment?
For us, we don't rent here only because we use it on a pretty regular basis,
Okay.
and also because, you know, people are constantly asking us about, you know, it's sort of important for us to have the gear. If someone who's using our platform says, hey, I'm using a TriCaster and I don't know how to get it to work streaming or something, we need to have one here so we can
Show
plug it and
them.
play with it.
Also, I think Ustream is probably in a unique position where they're integrating a lot of their products in the hardware that you see here. So there's some reasons to test things out and demo and R&D.
Yeah, and I will admit we haven't paid full price for all these products. So.
Well, any other questions? Jason.
Yeah, I just had a question. With TriCaster, what kind of, I guess, did you guys face any issues with getting the plug-in on the TriCaster, working with them? What kind of challenges did you face, if any?
No, I mean it was. I mean, as far as, you know, working with the company has been great, and we actually used, one of the things we did was, we had a couple options. So the TriCaster historically has always run command line FMLE, and we didn't want to do that because we wanted to have a little more control over the encoding. So probably, one of the biggest challenges was you do actually have to pay for some codecs, so we had to license some codecs for the plugin. But other than that, there's plenty of power on the computer to run it, and it's really easy for us. We already have a lot of experience with writing and coding things and transcoding things, so it was pretty straightforward. So should we move it along to the next presenter?
Sure. If the yeah, really having to keep track of time, but any other burning pressing questions before we move on?
For single camera, what is the recommended camera?
Any camera you want.
Any?
People ask this question all the time, and go to Best Buy, there's a million cameras that have HDMI output, and anything that has HDMI output, you can stream it.
Okay.
So. Okay. Thanks all, appreciate it. Good rundown, always great to see what the newest and greatest and latest is in the world of Ustream. So next, we've got Dan Sorensen from TVU Networks, who's going to talk about the products that TVU makes. And I will admit that I've done some consulting work and continue to do some consulting work for TVU Pack. So it's easy to get your friends and your coworkers to do these things before they say so. I'll turn it over to Dan.
All right, thanks, Eddie. So, like Eddie said, my name is Dan Sorensen, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about TVU Pack and mobile cellular uplink in general. Just out of show of hands, anybody not named Eddie, have you used a cellular bonding or a mobile cellular uplink product before? Okay, so we got a few people in here that are familiar. For the uninitiated, I'll do a pretty high-level overview of who we are as a company and what we do as far as technology is concerned. So TVU Networks, we're based in Mountain View, California. We've been around for a while. Our first broadcast over a 3G cellular network actually happened in 2006. There was a concert in Modesto that we were able to use 3 USB modems with one of our hardware appliances, a nice little box with 3 modems sticking out of it, and we're able to live stream over the internet that concert, which was a pretty revolutionary thing to do back in 2006. You fast forward to today, we've got hundreds of customers on 6 continents. To my knowledge, the only continent that hasn't been used is Antarctica. I could be wrong. I was actually talking to somebody from a science center the other day that they're looking at potentially purchasing the gear. They asked me if it would work from the moon. And I told her, well, if you can get a cellular signal up there, we absolutely work from the moon. So we'll see how well she does with that. But really, it's used by a lot of people, and we're transmitting more than 70,000 hours of video every month by broadcasters, web streamers around the world. And so it's a pretty ubiquitous technology. Basically, the way it works is plug the camera in. It gives you it's intended to be, think of it as a satellite truck in a backpack, where we use multiple connections, 3G or 4G cellular networks, or Ethernet or Wi-Fi. We can use microwave, we can use a satellite link. Basically anything that gives you an IP address, we're able to take the data and push it over all of those channels. We aggregate all of the bandwidth together, and we're able to push it through the channel and broadcast. The way the system works, there's a transmitter unit and there's a receiver unit. For our broadcast customers, they use a hardware receiver that sits in the production facility. For a lot of our web streaming customers, we use a cloud-based version of our receiver, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. Just kind of an overview of how it works. So basically, and I'll show you a little bit on the 8200 here. So this is our TVU Pack 8200. This is our flagship product. Really easy to use. Basically, the way it works is you plug in a camera. It takes any camera interface. So HDMI, composite, SDI, anything you can plug a GoPro into it if you wanted to. Anything you want to plug into it. You push the power button on the front. Boots up in less than 30 seconds. And it's automatically configured to communicate with the receiver on the receiver end. So you don't need to do any messing about with it in the field. Your camera operator can be a camera operator. You don't have to worry about configuring the modems or anything. So this will use up to 8 connections at once. And the way that it works is, so let's say we have 5 4G cards that are in this. What it will do is it will take that video signal and it will split it up 5 different ways. And we will monitor in real time the available bandwidth on each of those connections. And we will push as many packets through each individual connection as we possibly can. And on the receiver end, we'll re-aggregate everything, put it back together, and then you'll push it out on the receiver end to wherever you're going with it. It's really easy to use. We've got a whole family of solutions, lots of different flavors. The 8100 is the big backpack. It's our workhorse. We've been selling it for about 3 years now. The 8200 is a little bit smaller. It's modular. We've got the mini unit, which uses fewer connections, but it's camera mountable. It's a little bit smaller. The mini SC that you see up there is purpose built for Sony cameras that have the 50-pin interface, so you don't have to use an external battery. It basically becomes part of the camera. We even have an iPhone or a Windows Phone app that uses the same technology, and so you can use the 3G or 4G connection on your phone with the Wi-Fi on your phone, and you can push a video signal through there. So that's basically how the technology works. Let's talk a little bit more about some use cases. So cellular uplink, you know, it's really come of age in the last few years. We're seeing a lot of adoption. So, you know, where in the past a lot of companies were kind of dipping their toes in the water, seeing if this was something that was going to be able to be used. Now we're seeing, you know, practically every news station on the planet uses technology like this. You see a screenshot of one of our customers, WCB in Boston, where after the Boston bombings, when they were doing the manhunt for the suspects, they were following the police around with one of these backpacks, and they were And they were, you know, broadcasting that to the world. The feed's getting picked up by CNN and you know, other places over ABC, and really we're seeing this as people are seeing this as a legitimate and a solid tool for them, especially if they need to be mobile. So when we designed the product, we designed it with a few things in mind. We wanted to meet the IP video capture challenges. We wanted it to be easy to use in the field. We wanted to be able, you could deploy it anywhere quickly. Most importantly, we wanted broadcast quality video, whether you're going, you know, over the air or online. And online, you know, video quality maybe didn't matter so much, but we're seeing, you know, today that, you know, like we were talking, they were talking about before about, you know, how 1080 is becoming ubiquitous. So, you know, video quality and picture quality is becoming important even in the web streaming environment. And certainly low cost, especially when you compare it to a satellite truck. And we wanted to be able to do something that had low latency, so you can do interview type latency in this. You know, in optimal conditions, less than 1 second latency. And really, this allows you to go live from more locations. What this picture is News 7 Australia. They are on a boat between Cuba and Miami. There was an Australian swimmer that was doing a swim from Cuba to a free swim from Cuba to Miami. They had one of these black TVU packs hooked up to a BGAN satellite unit, and they were doing live shots from that boat moving between Cuba and Miami. And you know, just when you think about what even somebody attempting to do this 5 years ago is an absolute impossibility. And so you can do a lot of really cool things with it. From a webcasting perspective, we have a lot of different solutions that help webcasters. One of the biggest ones is our TVUPAC cloud service. And so basically, the transmitters remain the same, but on the receiver end, we have a cloud instance of our receiver that basically, so that the pack will connect to the cloud, and then we have a nice little web interface that you can select any CDN that you want. Ustream, obviously we're in the offices, is a company that a lot of our customers use. And so basically, same operation. Plug the camera in, push the button, it goes live, it connects automatically to the server that sits in the cloud. You're able to monitor that feed via a nice web GUI. You can make changes. It just takes a few clicks to set it up on the CDN, and you're streaming live. From practically anywhere in the world where you can get an internet connection. We've got a few customers, a few use cases that we've had over the past few years, just from the web streaming perspective. The first one is a company called Goose and Tudor Promotions. They're a boxing promoter. And a couple of years ago, their biggest fighter is a guy named Andre Ward. You may have heard of him. He's a local guy from Oakland, a world champion, middleweight, I believe. And he was having Showtime was putting on the World Boxing Classic. It was a championship tournament for the weight class, and Andre Ward was fighting a gentleman named Carl Froch for the heavyweight title. And so what this promoter and Showtime decided to do is they're going to put on press conferences for this fight in 3 different cities on consecutive days. So they went from London to New York City to Oakland on consecutive days and put on these press conferences. And they were, what usually happens with these press conferences is Showtime would film the whole thing. They'd take the most interesting 2 minutes, the stare down and the weigh in and a couple of the quotes, and they'd run that as part of their boxing promotion package, and everything else would get lost. And Goose and Tudor, being the smart promoter that they are, and wanting to hype up their fighters, they decided that they wanted to be able to go out and stream all of this press conference content live so that they could have a way for the fans to better connect with the fighters. So they came to us. We helped them get set up with the TVU pack. We actually set them up with a Ustream account, and we helped them get that set up. And they basically went to each of these press conferences. They would live stream the entire press conference, and then afterwards they would have the camera operator with the pack on his backpack, and they had a talent with a microphone, and he did interviews with the fighters, he did interviews with the trainers, he did interviews with the promoters, basically, with the families. Anybody that was there that was halfway interesting to talk to, he would do that, and it was streaming live. They had, at one point, they had 50,000 viewers on this. So the really hardcore boxing fans were able to see this, get pumped for the fight. Another interesting thing that these guys did was when they had this big championship fight, the big fights are on HBO or Showtime, but they've got an undercard of fighters, of young up-and-coming fighters that maybe wouldn't be broadcast on television. And so what they did was they actually used the TVU pack. They had a multiple camera set up with a switcher into the TVU pack, and they were pushing these fights out to the CDN. And so they were able to show the undercard, hype some of their younger fighters, where the main event would go on Showtime. And so that's one particular use case happened about 1.5 years ago with Goose and Tudor. A couple more recent ones. This one is the Tennessean. The Tennessean is the major daily newspaper in Nashville, Tennessee. They're a Gannett company, and Gannett is a big customer of ours. So Gannett owns USA Today, several newspaper properties, several broadcast stations, and they all use TVU pack for their 3G, 4G cellular uplink. And the Tennessean, they were at Bonnaroo, which is the big music and art festival. And basically, they had a whole team that was basically camping out there for the entire time of the festival. They were doing live video updates, they were doing video packages, they were doing the traditional newspaper thing with image galleries, with stories, and really trying to cover the event in a really comprehensive way. And so they were using TVU pack. You can see one of their editors using the TVU pack right there. But so that they were out using the TVU pack every single day, doing live broadcasts at certain hours of the time. So they were doing it from the press area. They would walk around through the festival. They would interview people. They weren't able to do any of the concerts for copyright reasons, but they were able to do a lot of unique and interesting things, and really for a newspaper to be streaming live. Once again, this is kind of a new and an innovative thing that where a newspaper is looking at themselves as a broadcaster. And so another tool that enables them to expand their influence and grow and change as they're trying to find a model that works in the digital age. Third case study actually happened over the 4th of July here in Northern California. Any cricket fans out there? No? Didn't think so. So the Northern California Cricket Association, they held a tournament, and they hold one every 4th of July weekend. And for the last couple of years, we've helped them as they've streamed this event. They use inexpensive cameras. It's a very small setup, but there's a small dedicated following. And so this is an amateur cricket tournament, and had more than 4,300 views from 10 different countries, which blows me away. That I tried to watch it for about an hour on and off, and I didn't understand a single thing that was going on. But I knew a couple people that were participating in this, and so I thought that I'd support them. I have no idea whether I was truly supporting them or I even saw them. But it was interesting, the fact that, and once again, small setup, so a couple of small cameras, inexpensive cameras, switcher, going into the TVU pack. Once again, Ustream, they set up a Ustream channel, and they were able to stream that live over 32 hours of streaming for this event. And so something that they were able to do really inexpensively. They rented the pack from us for the 4 days that it was there, brought it back at the end. And so it's something that they could do with the equipment where they didn't have to make a huge financial investment into it. So that's kind of an overview of what we do and kind of some of the solutions that we offer. So it's simple, it's versatile, it's powerful, it's ideal for live video, especially if you're on the move. We have a lot of people that use it in fixed setups because you can plug an Ethernet cable into it, or you can tap into the Wi-Fi. But really, it's something that you're limited only by your imagination in the types of things that you can do with this. And so if you would like afterwards to come up and take a look, I didn't do a live demo for the sake of time, but if you're interested in coming up and taking a closer look at this and learning more, I'm more than happy to answer questions then. But does anybody have any questions now just about the technology, how it works, what you can do with it?
How long does the battery run?
Good question. So for the big one, it uses dual mount batteries, so standard broadcast batteries, so gold mount, Anton Bauer. You get about 2 hours of life per battery. They're hot swappable, so theoretically you can run it indefinitely as long as you've got charged batteries. But if you don't have a charger, don't have charged batteries, fully charged batteries, you can get about 4 hours shooting HD on this.
Now, I've yet to use this or your competitor. I'm familiar with LiveView. Is that why TVU, and what's the benefit of TVU?
Benefit of TVU, a couple of things. Number one is better picture quality. So I showed it a little bit earlier. So the way that we transmit the signal is a little bit different than a lot of our competitors. They use cellular bonding, which is basically they take each of the data connections, you take that pipe, they combine it into one big fat pipe, and you basically get an average of the available bandwidth. What we do is it's a proprietary technology. It's called inverse StatMux, and you're able to utilize more of the available bandwidth. And if a connection drops, we're able to recover a lot of those packets in a better way. That in the end, it gives you a superior picture quality. We do some other things that are different than our competitors. For example, this guy here, so he's fully modular, so you don't have to leave it in the backpack. You can just pull the encoder out. The encoder is about twice as big as the small camera mount version. We're more integrated with a lot of the cameras, so we're integrated with Sony cameras, we're integrated with Panasonic cameras, depending on what you're using. If you're using the bigger, more professional cameras, we have a solution with JVC, and so, but really, what we do is, especially when we come up in a competitive environment, is we just tell people, test it head to head. You put a competitor next to ours and look at the picture, and really that's what it comes down to.
So if a client doesn't have the upload speed that I need to live stream, that would be my better bet. If they can't guarantee me what I need, that will give me that.
It will, and there's a couple of other things in this that are advantageous. One of them is this. So this has got a dual encoder. It's the only system that does. And so while it's streaming live over the 3G, 4G, it's simultaneously encoding and recording on an SSD drive. And so, for example, if you lose connectivity to the internet, this will continue to record, and then the second the connectivity is reestablished, it will start pushing that signal out again. And so with that dual encoder, and so a lot of those small features that and you don't always use it. But we have, for example, we have a broadcast customer that I was talking to. The tornado season, they were in a moving vehicle, they were going live. During the tornado, the cell tower went down and they lost everything. So they continued to shoot. They drove about 3 miles down the road. As soon as they got connection, it starts pushing it again. So they called it, what did they call it? Almost live. And so, doing things like that. So because it's so versatile, there's a lot of things that you can do with it.
Cost.
So the system, to purchase it, with the small camera mounts, it runs anywhere from about $12,000 to about $40,000, depending on what options you put on it. But so when you're talking, comparison with a live truck, it's very economical.
So it doesn't require licensing when you purchase it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, and we also rent them as well. So We rent for a month, we rent for a couple of days. We have a global rental program where, for example, when the Papal Conclave, we had customers that basically called us up. We want a TVU pack in Rome. We're going to pick it up on this day. We had it waiting for them in the hotel. They had it for 3 days. They gave it back to us. So we do stuff like that all the time. And so, from a cost perspective, if you're doing an event, you only want it for a couple of days, we can set you up with the event. You send it back, and it's much more cost effective for you.
How much is that rental rate? 2-day rental?
It starts at about $1,000, and that includes data card usage. Other questions?
Does it require a couple hours training?
Really no training. The camera operator training that we recommend is plug the camera in, push the green button, and you're trained. You're good to go. When you initially get the pack, what we do is we have a full-time support team that's based in Raleigh, North Carolina. So when you initially get the pack, they help you set it up the first time so that it will automatically connect with whatever receiver option that you're using. But after that, once it's paired with the receiver, all you have to do is plug the camera in, push the button, and it goes. And so really, really simple to use. We tried to make the thing idiot-proof.
Anyone else?
How heavy is it?
I'm sorry?
How much
How
does
heavy
it
is
weigh?
it?
So this one with batteries weighs about 20 pounds.
Okay.
So not too terribly bad.
It's a backpack.
Yeah, that's the backpack. The small camera mount version weighs less than 2.
Just wanted to ask about the connectors. Are they professional lockable connectors?
I'm sorry?
All the cable signal connectors, are they professional lockable connectors?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So it's professional gear. It's used by professional broadcasters. And you name it. CNN, the BBC, Sky News, Al Jazeera, the biggest broadcasters in the world, they're using it. So we've designed it for that in mind. However, if all you've got is a small Best Buy camera with an HDMI cable, it uses that too. So, do we have one more?
Can you plug it into AC power, just no battery?
You can plug it into AC power, so you don't necessarily need to even use the battery. And so, if you're in a fixed location and you want to leave it stationary, absolutely.
Cool. So I think this might be an interesting time to segue into our third speaker because what's interesting in this tying together all three of the presenters tonight is what Jay Tao is going to talk about is his experiences at the Occupy movement. And if I recall, can you verify for me, did any broadcaster or civil entity use those packs during Occupy SF last year?
Yes. They did. In fact, okay. I'm looking forward to this presentation because it's going to be interesting because you get there were multiple people using this. So KGO TV is a big customer of ours, and so one of the things that they were doing is when the police went in, in the middle of the night to start clearing people out, KGO was right on the tail of them with these packs. Following the police around and trying to capture the story. So they were using it extensively. Also, Oakland Police Department was using TVU packs on their end as part of their mobile surveillance.
Y'all gave them to them, right?
What's that?
Y'all gave them to them on a lending program, I heard.
No, we did not.
That's the way they reported it.
So yeah, it was being used, and I'm excited to see because I was watching a lot of what was going on on the Ustream, on the Occupy end. So it's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say about that.
Yeah, it's actually a live view pack went to one of our streamers from Ustream for a good portion of it.
Yeah. All right, awesome, Dan. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, we got Jay Tao, also known as Punk Boy in SF, who's kind of made a name for himself on the Twitters and the internets. Basically covering the Occupy movement as it started in, what was it?
My first day was October 5th, so
October 5th.
It started here probably right around September 17th, I guess. The same day.
Same day as in New York.
Yeah, same day as in New York. I think they started with marches here, but October 5th was the first day that I knew about them actually putting up tents in front of the Federal Reserve.
Right, that's right.
And I was a loyal CNET follower, like I used to listen to Buzz Out Loud daily.
Oh, really?
And so that was how I knew that stuff was starting up, from hearing news about them on Anonymous and the different causes they were taking up against Scientology, everything. And so I was following a couple of anonymous streams or anonymous feeds on YouTube, and I'd seen the Wall Street thing and thought it was kind of interesting that everybody was going to kind of storm Wall Street in New York. And so when I saw on the local news that they had popped up some tents in front of the Federal Reserve, I just went down with my dog and put on a Guy Fawkes mask and went and started talking to people.
And this is before you had any technology. This is before you had I'll let you get into it. I'm curious about, but
So while I'm down there, I go and I bring like a couple of bags of food and I take my dog for a walk. And about 20 minutes after I get there, when I'm just hanging out and talking to people, the riot police showed up to just clear everyone out, like on one of the first days.
right.
Actually on the first day. And I, being a geek, had filled up my SD card and had no storage in my phone, and wanted to make sure that stuff was documented because it didn't seem anybody there had anything to do that. I knew I had this app that I used once to record my dog running up the stairs, and nobody watched, so I just sat there dormant. And I did remember that it saved up in the cloud, so I turned on the Ustream app just out of desperation, and I had 300 viewers within a few minutes.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to let you continue, and I'm going to step over here and
Make it really horrible for the world. So that was actually how I started. It was like I went down there and on accident I was streaming and had 300 people watching. And there's a mirror site that runs off of the live stream that aggregates a bunch of other feeds called Global Revolution. And apparently they had just seen when it put out a tweet that I was live and started mirroring me at that point. And so since nobody else was doing it, I just decided to keep going down there and making sure this stuff got documented because I thought it was a pretty historic thing that was going on. I mean, not since the 60s had we seen a protest movement catch fire that quick, that big, in all over the world. And me and a guy named Tim Pool out of New York, and then within a few weeks after I started here, it was I think November 2nd that Spencer, also known as Oakful Show, started streaming from over in Oakland on the first night that the police sort of turned it violent after the really, really beautiful general strike day. And apparently Ustream reached out to him and gave him this the T-Live View, is that the other one? The Live View backpack. And got to use that once or twice. I think it was on the day of the strike at UC Berkeley, which was in response to the day that the cops beat everybody just for putting a few tents up at the university. So I marched for like 5 miles from Oakland to UC Berkeley with that thing on, and he could have it. The other one is very, very heavy. It seemed to be about 50 pounds. So, I mean, one of the things that's also really cool that nobody's talked about much is the interaction with the viewers that you can have while watching. And I think that's very important when you're out in the field because people are watching, and a lot of people have the police scanner feeds on, the police scanner streams. So they're constantly feeding you information, letting you know like what they're doing. And I mean, it's also a great intelligence tool for police because they know everything that's going on. But what it does give outside of the mainstream media is an unedited, unbiased view. I mean, even if people were just to mute my commentary, I try to be as impartial as possible. But if they were to mute my commentary and just watch what's going on, they can form their own opinion. They can see what's going on. And the other phenomenon we've noticed with a lot of this stuff, and the more viewers you get, like the more this happens, is people like, I'm assuming the Koch brothers and people pay what we call paid trolls. And so the more press you would get and the more viewers you would get, the more likelihood you would have people in the chat rooms that are sort of giving anti-opinions to everything else that people are doing. Like, I think one of the last big things, somebody here, I think it was, what's her name, who runs the news feed here, but I think they tweeted me out on the main Ustream page when I was covering the last port shutdown that the union did. And as soon as that happened, it was like there was at least a dozen paid trolls in there to sort of counter the union narrative and say things like, oh, unions are why we don't get paid anything, and they all have such cushy jobs. Kind of jumping around a bit, but I didn't prepare much of anything. I sort of wrote just... But it's... What's that?
You're doing good.
Yeah. I mean, does anybody have any questions? You guys, if you're doing track casting and stuff from inside the studio, you don't usually have to bring a gas mask with you. But I mean, one of the things is we covered, I covered so many raids early on in the beginning, and as much as I'm against if it bleeds, it leads kind of stuff, that's what I found myself doing for the first month here, because I was the only one running around with the mobile camera streaming. So it was like I'd hear that they were going to Berkeley, and like I saw a tweet coming out, that famous footage where they're just like stabbing the girls with the batons and everything. So I saw still pictures of that from the afternoon while I was walking my dog, and I'm like, they don't have anybody there to cover this. So it's like I shot my ass down on BART over to Berkeley. I mean, I had covered at least 24 raids in the early days, and I became very jaded against the police for a little while. I've changed my views on how to deal with them since then, but I mean, just seeing that kind of repression go on over and over and over, and having to be the only thing that I was covering early on in the beginning, it was kind of sad, but I moved on. I do a lot of different things now. I've started editing, but I mean, this is still always what sort of got me into how, still uncomfortable with how well known I am from this. Like, I mean, I think I had over 100,000 views of the first raid in Oakland. I think it's well over 100,000 now. And that's post-live.
It's posted where? On Ustream.tv?
Yeah, it's in the Ustream archive.
Just to tell people at home, it's ustream.tv
/ OccupySF, which I was going to talk to somebody about maybe changing that because I'm sort of...
So you got the OccupySF namespace, basically.
Yeah, and Ustream sort of pushed that on me. Like
they wanted you to be the official representative.
It was Ruby who was running it back then.
We can change it for you.
Yeah.
Do that. You got some
Can
support.
I just take ustream.tv / punkwinesf?
Sure. Whatever you want.
And not that I still don't do stuff with them, but I was never part of their media group, and my reasoning for that was I knew they were going to sort of butt heads at some point, and there was always a lot of fighting in it, and I just kept it at arm's length. And I said, I'm going to do my own thing. If you guys like it, use it. If you don't, I don't care. I'm doing what I'm doing.
Do you work in tandem with somebody else while you're streaming the Occupy stuff on the ground? Do you have someone monitoring the feed locally?
Just because we're streaming, let me get you there.
Yeah, I mean,
The question was, do you work in tandem with someone monitoring the chat room, the social stream, and also keeping track of where you are? Another question, too, not to bombard you with it, is do you have journalism credentials? Can you show them to cops and be like, don't tase me, bro?
okay, so the way we found that the police deal with that is that the First Amendment works for anybody who calls himself a journalist. So it's a self-label. But the way that you get behind a police line, behind the yellow tape, is that you do have to go and file with the city and county or however it works in your jurisdiction. And once you get that, they take your DNA, your fingernails, something that if you contaminate a crime scene, like they have accountability to know who's been back there. So that's the main difference, is they're only supposed to make a distinction for going behind the police line. Other than that, you're allowed to be there if you've got a camera or some media way of documenting with pen and paper to be able to be there and report on stuff as long as you don't interfere with what they're doing. And they'll use that a lot of times to say like, oh, you're interfering, we need this whole 2-block space. Just a few weeks ago when the Hayes Valley farm that had been occupied and called the Gezi Gardens in honor of the Turkish protest, but basically they're giving that piece of public land to another condo developer because we need another 150 condos in the middle of Hayes Valley. But there were people there who had been farming it, and when they kicked them out, they said that a 2-block radius was what they needed for their eviction. And so nobody was able to be there as they beat and arrested a bunch of people inside.
Right on. The other question was, do you have someone monitoring the feed, working with you as like a feedback loop? I'm not getting audio, it's delayed, there's bad reception in this area, there's
that's
so-and-so person.
I mean, there's a dedicated set of people who've sort of just taken it upon themselves to being our monitors and doing that, but we never designated anybody. They're just people who volunteer and just sort of were doing that. And people like Cat G4, and there's a lot of C79, all these are Twitter names, but there are people that I don't know directly, but have always kept an eye on us, and there's been a core set of viewers that always watch what streams are up and are tweeting out whenever somebody goes live. And
in addition to changing your vanity URL, which we're more than happy to do, we can teach you how to use the social moderation tool, which kind of prevents the trolls from occupying. Not only, you block a troll, they pop up 10 minutes later with a new ID. With our social moderation tool, they're blocked, but they don't know they're blocked. So they're spewing their filth to nobody.
Yeah, and I always took it. Brilliant. I mean, there are people who are just on there just to be obnoxious, and I was always of the mind that I don't want to block anybody who has an opposing viewpoint because I want the discussion there. But the people who are that are obviously paid to be there and are spewing the same Alex sort of rhetoric over and over again. Like those people, I have no problem booting because they're not giving their opinion. They're spouting something they're getting paid to spout. So.
Right on.
Yeah, Alden, you got something to say?
Oh yeah, just quick question. What phone were you using when you were streaming?
When I first started streaming, I had a Droid Incredible, which was one of the higher phones at that point.
Okay.
And then I had somebody, after the camp got raided, we let a handful of people crash at our house for a couple nights. And the one that I didn't know that my husband knew who had brought over, by the time I woke up in the morning, a couple of my things were gone. So I crowdfunded, and this is the one I've had since last December, which was the top of the line when it came out, which is an HTC Resound. So it's the first one to have a 720 screen.
Works pretty good.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I realized that I needed when I first started doing this was that's why I don't have an iPhone.
What is that?
I can bring a handful of extra batteries with me, and I'll have to go down for about 3 or 4 minutes at a time. But each one of these regular sized batteries is about an hour and a half of streaming, and that's how I can benchmark my batteries. Is because when it turns on from a full charge, and you hit the Ustream button, it's a consistent, accurate benchmark for it. So each one of those smaller batteries is about an hour to an hour and a half of streaming. And each one of the extended batteries is about 3 to 3.5 hours.
Very
so
nice.
with that, plus my external charge pack, I could have probably gone for about 36 hours without charging. And on some days we did when we were waiting raids. We'd just be up for a day and a half, just waiting and waiting and waiting.
Wow. I got a question. So, I was following all this stuff very closely when it was going down, and showed up down there a bunch as well. And I know there's you, there's Oak for Show, there's Pix Please, there's a few other people.
Justin Beck, who's a journalism professor at UCSF? Yeah, not UCSF, SF State.
Yeah. I think he joined the meetup group actually yesterday or today, so hopefully we'll see him. But I was just curious. I mean, everybody, it was very sort of ad hoc. People just decided to kind of pick up a camera or pick up a phone and go document on their own. But knowing that there was sort of this kind of peer network going on, who decided to kind of take on what? I mean, was there sort of like a kind of an unspoken
in the media group, there was an organization of who was covering what, and once or twice on big actions, I did come down to see what everyone else was covering, and they'll ask me, well, what are you going to cover? It's like, well, I'll show up when I think needs coverage. I'll just go there. Right. So I always worked independently of any of the media groups, except for maybe, I think Occupy Congress was very organized on their meetup. A guy named Rousseauist on Twitter organized a big live streamers meetup, so it was the first time that we had sort of a national action where people came from all over the country. I think we had 80 people actually managed to make it, and in the bottom of this church we had this big meeting, and it was we all got to meet each other, and it was just amazing how many people just rose up in the middle of all this stuff. And a lot of us had never done anything like this before. And I kind of accidentally fell into it one night, and it just kind of came naturally at some point. And when you go to these national events, after sitting for hours and hours and hours, especially in the early days when the camps were around, just gabbing for hours, people feel like they know you. They feel like they know you personally. People would run up to me and be like, "Oh my God, I love you so much," and be like, "I wouldn't go." It's kind of weird. It's odd to be sort of a celebrity in a weird underground circle.
Right. And Ustream was very supportive, right? As soon as they saw this was happening,
they took the commercials off from us. They gave us sort of semi-pro accounts.
Right. I mean,
I think there's something that pro accounts get that we don't. But basically, in the middle of a raid, you don't want some Disney commercial.
Yeah, you have commercial-free accounts going, right?
That was happening. There was a bunch of Disney commercials that were coming on, and as the cops were beating people, it just kept saying Mickey Mouse.
It was like the man is getting you from both sides.
There was a lot of video game commercials. First-person shooters came on.
Rad. I had another question. I just spaced for a second.
If we have footage of Occupy SF, we can give it to you? I have a lot of footage.
If it was streaming, yeah, anything that came over
Oh, it has to be live?
Ustream.tv/OccupySF, that was the vanity URL that Ustream made me take at that point, because I was the only one who was out there all the time doing stuff.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think you understood.
I don't think you understood.
No.
There was no microphone, no.
Wait, have her ask the question. Yeah,
I think the question was different than what you interpreted, but go ahead. Here.
No, I was saying I covered the Occupy SA at a different time. If we have footage, should we give it to you, or is do you have archives or something?
Yes,
Are you doing a
my stuff
documentary?
Independently, the media group might be interested if it's still sort of in existence.
No, I mean, are you going to do a documentary out of all the footage?
I am doing a documentary, but it's sort of it's on an alternate subject. I'm doing one on sort of anonymous, but I mean, if you have footage and you could copy it off to something, I'd be interested in hanging on to it somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So now that you've done this, if you had maybe one or two things that you wish you'd known before you get started, what would those be?
actually, I would have known ahead of time that all of the people in government who said they were with us would turn against us as soon as whatever they did to them made them change their minds. And that, I don't know, that the seeds of corruption are a lot deeper than I assumed they were at the beginning. And I think I'm still very uncomfortable with the Snowden guy. Like, I'm not sure what his motives are, or whether he's a double agent, or whatever this nonsense is with him. But if any of the leaks that he's been giving are true, not about the surveillance stuff, but the other stuff that's not making as much press that the Guardian's been publishing. One of them came out through their environmental reporters, where we've all been wondering, like, why is DHS stockpiling hollow point bullets? Why is the government doing this? What are these FEMA camps about? There have been leaks in the Snowden stuff that have talked to that, and the way it sort of sounds is like around 2015, contrary to the scientists who apparently have been paid off to say we have a lot more oil in the world than there is, around 2015, according to these leaks, the world is going to be running very low on oil, or at least oil production, and it's going to plummet the petrodollar, which is our economic control of the world. And somewhere around 2015 is when the government thinks that they're going to descend into huge, like, domestic uprisal here, and that the economy won't start recovering until 2020. And that's what they're preparing for. So we've got about 2 more years, folks. And if you believe what all these things are about, it's either a scare tactic to scare us, which that's what it's about. I would think it'd get more publicity than those parts of the leaks.
There's a meeting tonight of Occupy SF on top of McDonald's at 16th and Mission.
What is it?
Tonight there's an Occupy SF meeting.
Oh. They're meeting on
16th and Mission.
Is that one of the big companies? Global Exchange?
At the Women's Building.
What's the new documentary you're working on?
I'm going to be starting one on sort of the spiritual roots behind what has evolved out of the anonymous movement. Like, they started out as a bunch of hackers and mischief makers and everything, but it's sort of evolved into this very spiritual, like, doing things for the greater good without any self-recognition of it. And I kind of want to interview people like, there's a guy who's a Martin Luther King scholar who I know who's going to speak in it, and try to get a couple of religious leaders to speak on it, even if I don't say the word anonymous to them, but just to speak on that idea and what I think is sort of a very, like, higher purpose thing in the anonymous movement.
Are you still live streaming these days?
Yeah, I did recently. There was the March Against Monsanto, which is probably one of the biggest things I've been on since the heyday of Occupy. Like that was pretty big here. It was very beautiful. And now that I've got my HD rig, I was kind of juggling my streaming camera and the HD camera. I need one of those clamps that put it all together.
Oh, so you're using an HD camera these days? You got
I have a Nikon D5100.
Oh, nice.
And just happened the other day. I was just streaming something the other day, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was 4th of July. I went out and filmed part of Anonymous is the 4th of July thing. I think I brought a handful of them, but we passed out constitutions on the 4th of July. Because most people don't know their rights, and as we lose them, it's kind of nice to have as a novelty what they used to be.
So now that you know about all this great technology and gear, do you wish you still only had an iPhone or a phone and a bunch of batteries as opposed to big cameras and packs?
Well, since I run on a very shoestring budget, like, unless something's donated to me, I'm not going to have any of this expensive stuff. Like, my HD camera was, crowdsourced from donations and everything, so anything I get is all not coming out of my pocket because I can barely afford my rent.
Well, thanks for your efforts.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Jay Tao, thank you so much for telling us about it.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So I think now we'll take a bit of a break. I mean, this is all the presentations, but if anybody has anything they would like to present, again, 5 minutes or less, something they're working on, something interesting they're doing, events they're promoting, whatever, you're totally welcome to do that. Just come see me first so we can kind of queue you up. Otherwise, I'd say let's take 5 or 10 minutes to kind of just chill out and meet each other and chill. Or if you feel like split, that's cool too. Not going to hold that against you. We're trying to do these monthly. Don't know if that's going to happen on target every month, but that's kind of the gist that we're shooting for. If anybody who has some interesting experiences around streaming wants to present in the future, please come see me. I'm always looking for more presenters. And yeah, I would say go ahead and let's break for a few minutes. And let's see. Welcome back, everybody. This is the we are continuing on with the live stream, the SF Webcasters and Live Streamers Meetup group. We've had the main presentations, and now what we're going to do is this thing called Open Streams, where anybody who happens to be here can just pitch whatever the hell they want. And we got a couple of people who got a few things. The first is Nathan Lively. What is your Twitter handle? Do you want to share? You don't have to, obviously.
I do, it's just hard to say.
At Nathan Lively? It's
not. It is not. It is Nathan Dufrango.
Well, come on up here. You can tell the audience how to spell it if you like. Nathan Dufrango. You and your complicated names, you kids. So, Nathan Lively, Nathan Dufrango is going to talk about something, and I will leave it at that.
Yes. NathanDofrango. It comes from a band name that I had a while ago, and then I don't know, I decided not to change it. I wish I would have gotten at Nathan Lively right when I was getting that. I'm sure it was available. Now I think DJ Nathan Lively has it, and it's too bad. Okay, so I know there's a lot of people who wear a lot of different hats in this room, but how many people here consider themselves sound engineers, among other things? That guy, making the feedback. Yeah. Okay, so I started a site called Sound Design Live, and it's for sound engineers. I'm a sound engineer and a sound designer. When I moved here 3 years ago, I was trying to promote my services as a sound designer, sound system designer, and I started this site and started interviewing other sound engineers and sound designers, basically people I'd wanted to talk to anyway, and then used the site as sort of credibility to get past the email threshold of being ignored. And I would say, hey, I have this site, I'm going to interview, and got to talk to people who I think normally I wouldn't have been able to. What happened was I didn't get any work from the site, so that didn't work. But after a couple of months, I had over 20,000 followers on SoundCloud. So I realized that there were other sound engineers out there who were trying to deal with the same problems, trying to create a career for themselves in the audio industry. So I kept doing the podcast, and recently started adding some new features, so it's a blog now too. And when I was trying to figure out what to do next, let me step back for a second and say that an important feature of the story is that last year I interviewed Eddie for the podcast, and he was the first person that I ever talked to about video, so I talked to him from the perspective of a sound engineer who's being asked to do video. Like, basically, what's the minimum I need to know? It's a great place to get started if you don't know anything about webcasting, like I didn't. And I actually used the information he gave me to do some events after that. I got Wirecast, I worked for some lawyers, I did some global webcasts for them, and before talking to Eddie, I didn't know anything.
Have you got my bill yet?
Affiliate account on the Wirecast. Anyway, the next step of the story is that I decided to write an ebook and basically take the best parts of each interview and put it into a book form, try to make it go farther than the podcast for people who don't want to listen to an entire 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour of a podcast. So now everything is organized into sections. So there is a chapter on software mixing. There's a chapter with Eddie about webcasting. There's a chapter about microphone technique for theater and floor mics. So pretty specific stuff. And just really the best parts of those interviews. So the first section is all about technology, and the second section is basically about doing the job, like dealing with loudness, protecting your hearing, finding more clients, going to school. There's a whole section about education for students. And then there's some bios in the end. And it's pretty short, it's about 50 pages, and it goes on sale on Sunday.
Nice, how much?
July 14th, it will be $7,997. $7.97. And at the moment it's just on my site, and then pretty soon it'll be on Amazon and Barnes & Noble as well. But anyway, that's Sound Design Live, and it's pretty easy to find the book once you get there. There's a products link. And if you want to find Eddie's interview, I think you can just search for Eddie, or you can go to archives, and his show is called From Free to Fee, a guide for integrating webcasting into your live events, or something close to that.
That's the name of the chapter in the book, or that's your? Or the
That is the post on the website. The name of the chapter is webcasting, something like that. I was like, I can't remember. I should have this in front of me. That's the problem with an ebook. Like, I can't just like thumb through it and read something to you.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, I look forward to that for sure. Thanks. All right. And do you still do the podcast?
I do still do the podcast. Just came out with, just started because of the ebook coming out. I have a post coming out every day this week, and the podcast was a really interesting interview with this guy Philip Graham in Portland, who makes condenser microphones out of old like bicycle parts and stuff. What? Yeah, they look really cool and they sound great. So I did an interview with him and found out that I was afraid of using condenser microphones for the wrong reasons, and now I can use them all the time.
Very cool. All right. So next we have Aline.
Yeah, I have a real quick
Aline, she's got a really quick announcement. Aline.
Thank you. I produce a bilingual show called French American TV for the past 25 years. And I would like to start maybe a channel on Ustream, maybe call it multi-language TV. So wanted to invite everybody who can produce in other languages to submit to that channel. It will be multi-language TV. And that's the idea. Hopefully it will flourish into a real multi-language TV from different countries streaming into it.
What kind of subjects do you cover?
Oh, right now, actually today at videotape Occupy SF at One Market, but I cover all events that are on my way, and I also do bilingual programming.
So is the idea to get content out to other language speakers?
Basically, my show is bilingual. I do, for example, interviews first in English, then in French, and I also do, multicultural shows like art shows and concerts and all that. But the idea is to have like a portal with different languages. So instead of going to a TV that broadcasts, let's say, in Italian, they would simply come to multi-language TV and find Italian, or go to multi-language TV and find German. Or
So will everything
one spot to find different languages.
Will all the the content you make or the stuff you cover, will it be in all the languages then each time?
No, everybody can produce their own stuff from their language. This way, wherever they are walking and something's happening, they can take and broadcast it in their language. I guess Ustream can be broadcasted from anywhere in the world since it's online. So it could be broadcasted from anywhere.
Yeah, I think the Ustream app is available on pretty much worldwide, right? Yeah.
Not North Korea.
Not North Korea. And where else? China.
Anywhere where we can have a plug-in, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, Evan. Thank you for that. Nice. Switch. Anyone else? Any last minute presentations? No? Okay. Well, hey, then we're going to end it on that. I'm going to put this down. Hopefully the sound engineers in the house can make sure that doesn't go. Oh, perfect. Look at that. Somebody's paying attention. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. This is the second event we've done so far in this series. Hopefully we'll do another one next month. Again, looking for more people to line up. What we're doing is we're moving this around from location to location. I'm sure we'll be back at Ustream at some point, assuming they want us back. But the idea is to kind of move it around to different venues around the city, just so we can kind of see what people's offices and studios look like. And just, the idea is to kind of lift all boats in spreading knowledge in the greater world of streaming and webcasting. So that's really the goal. And really, as we saw tonight, we had a platform demo, we had an equipment demo, we had experiences. It's all about really anything having to do with the greater world of streaming. So on that note, again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for watching, for everybody who's on the internet. And yeah, we'll see you soon.